How's it going, everybody? This is Dave Meltzer, and we're here for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling, and we will be in just 1 second. Brian, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay. I actually can't hear anything. We're trying to figure out what to do. Aha, there we go. Now we know what's going on. But anyway, I'm Dave Meltzer. We're going to be for the next 2 hours talking pro wrestling here with Wrestling Observer Live. We got Brian Alvarez of Figure 4 Weekly here. We've got a loaded line of phone calls, so we'll be talking to you guys. You can call up at 1-800-878-PLAY, but you have to wait for someone to hang up. And we've got more than a lot of things to talk about. First of all, in the NFL today, the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Atlanta Falcons. They're going to the Super Bowl 27-10. And in the AFC Championship game, the New England Patriots are ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers 24-3, and we'll be updating that. It's in the second quarter. We'll be updating that, but it's looking like a rout. And that's Monty Brown's ex-team, New England Patriots.
Wow.
Yeah, so they could be going to the Super Bowl. And wouldn't that have been just smart to have made him world champion at the same time, just for the pub? I don't know.
Well, there's still time.
Ain't going to happen before the Super Bowl. There's time for
maybe in the next Super Bowl.
Yeah, I guess so. You know what? Even if they weren't going to go to the Super Bowl, they still should have made him champion.
Yeah.
But that's another thing. But TNA, that was a great show though last Sunday.
Yeah. It's I was just writing about this week they had 2 years of so much horrible stuff that it really made an impression on me. And I think it made an impression on a lot of people that when they heard the term TNA, it was an immediate turnoff. And it's like they've had 2 great pay-per-views in a row. The TV hasn't been miserable or anything like that. It's been better than SmackDown. Yet it's going to take time to get over that. You know what I mean? It's like a stigma now.
Yeah, but I would say not in Atlanta. Those people that go there to those to the shows, they think they're on the ground floor of something now.
That's great, but that's such a small number of people.
I know, especially since they all get in for free. But I mean, I would say that they there's something there that hasn't been there, since they started.
Yeah, they need more quality shows, and they need more people to see these quality shows.
Yeah. And
at least they got half of that right now.
And we've got so much stuff to talk about. It's been quite the entertaining week. I want to make mention, since we just had a commercial for the Jimmy Hart book, Jimmy Hart will be our guest on February the 27th, which is actually quite a ways away, but just wanted to make mention. And also...
Can we get Russo on when his book comes out?
Yeah, why not?
I can't wait to hear the commercials for that one.
and on February 27th, we're going to have Rulon Gardner on as well.
Oh?
So that'll be an interesting... before the debut of Real Pro Wrestling. Which, when is I don't know the date that starts, and I should know that off the top of my head. It's in March, I'm sure. And, anyway, the one new show that did start on Monday night and, been replayed a couple times during the week, The Ultimate Fighter on Spike TV, it opened to a 1.42 rating, which is a very good number. The big number to me is, this coming Monday, because if it stays at or near that level, then the show's probably going to be a success. Because if it's going to drop off, it'll drop off in the first week. And if it goes up, then that's really good. And if it goes down a whole lot really fast, then that's what it is. And, Brian, what were your thoughts on the debut show?
I think that my 2 biggest thoughts were I don't know if it's just because I have a bad memory or if they didn't do a good enough job, but they need to do a better job getting over the personalities.
Absolutely. And telling you who everyone was. Yeah,
because in fact, I got a list today of all the competitors on the show, and I was going through them trying to figure out which of these names I recognized, and there were maybe 3. And that's not a good thing.
Chris Levin and Diego Sanchez, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
And the dude that tried to quit. Ooh, I can't even remember his name outside of his head.
Jason Thacker?
Sure.
And what about Bobby Southworth? What did the Canadian guy? Bobby Southworth.
He didn't count because I knew him before.
Oh, you knew Bobby? Okay.
So, but I mean, they need more fighting. Is the other thing.
Well, that starts on week 3.
Yeah, it is an Ultimate Fighter show, but they do need to show a lot of fighting, and even if it's just fighting during training, because they had.
Well, actually, from what I gathered on Monday's show, there's no fights, but there's some guys that lose their temper, and I think there's some fights.
That's what they need. They need that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's going to be. I mean, I don't know much about it. I know that I know people who've seen the first 4 episodes, and they say that in the first 4, each episode is better than the one before that.
Okay, that's good.
So that's good. But if they didn't capture people that are interested in watching week 2, it really doesn't matter.
To me, the show wasn't like a turnoff. If I were just like a casual fan and I watched it, I'd be interested in watching it the next week. Not like, I can't wait for it. But it wasn't something where I was like, oh, that was horrible, I'm never watching this show again or anything like that.
Yeah, but if you last through 5-6 weeks and know the guys, I think you're going to be really into the fights because you actually know the guys fighting.
Yeah. But I think that this Monday's show will probably do the same or a slightly better rating. I don't think it's going to go down. Well,
and that's very good for the UFC.
Yeah.
Because the rating of the final episode in April is the real key to the story. Because if this show does a good number, the final episode will probably do a very good number.
Mm-hmm.
And if the final episode does a very good number, UFC's made.
Yeah.
To a degree, anyway. Well, between this and Tough Enough, I'll tell you the one thing. Got a lot of emails, and I think that the thing that everyone noticed between this and Tough Enough, and it was a real interesting thing because I noticed it too, is that in Tough Enough, they were training people to do something that, in fact, was not real fighting. I mean, it was a demonstration. It's certainly, tough, but professional wrestling in ways is tougher than Ultimate Fighting, but in other ways it's not.
Yeah.
And the point I guess to make is that professional wrestling in some ways is physically tougher, and you have to be a physically tougher person to fight than do professional wrestling.
Yeah.
Okay? The point of all this is that in the WWE Tough Enough shows, they've always had one trainer who was like the total drill sergeant guy, just like making fun of him, running the guys down. And in this one, where you would think you would want that, you've got 2 guys, and I don't think either of them are going to turn into that.
No.
Couture,
and I don't.
Well, Randy Couture is Al Snow, but Chuck Liddell is not, Taz. I almost felt now, and I felt it, Tough Enough was more of a fraud, though. In the sense of, this is, the guys what they're training these guys to do actually has something to do with what they're doing. Tough Enough, I think, was a fraud in the sense that they made guys do things that professional wrestlers couldn't do, wouldn't do, never trained to do, and had nothing to do with professional wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a reality show goes, this is a lot more reality, I think.
Yeah, and I think they also need to as far as like the fighting goes, they need to show more training footage because I don't think.
I disagree on that one.
I mean, as far as like letting people know how hard it really is.
Because I think too much training footage is going to bore the general public. You don't
have to have footage of them running on the treadmill.
Yeah,
but you can have footage of them doing their boxing training, their sparring, their.
I mean, I think it needs clips like they had on the show, but I don't think too much. I think you need more personality and less training footage, but you need to have the training footage of the guys dying and of the guy getting the headbutt and his head split and things like that.
Stuff like that.
Yeah, that stuff you need.
And they need more clips of the trainers mutilating people.
Yeah, but not mutilating people that are in the main events in 2 weeks.
Well,
I didn't think that was very smart.
Yeah, but
here's Vitor Belfort,
the Fox Sports Net special.
Yeah, it's like we got a main event of Tito Ortiz and Vitor Belfort. Now let's watch our trainers beat the hell out of both of them.
I mean, it's good in a sense that at least the trainers are 2 badasses. But
yeah, so why do you want to watch Why do you want to watch the pay-per-view to see the guys that they beat up?
Well, I'm just saying they've beaten many people, so you can get 2 more, 2 different guys.
That's what I mean. I mean, Chuck Liddell has some really, good wins over, people like, Babalu and Kevin Randleman and stuff, where you really don't need to show him beating up your main eventers.
Yeah.
And Randy Couture, in the same way. So anyway, but that's because I think like a wrestling person, and I don't know what they exactly think like, but it's not like wrestling people. Off of that, WWE's coming off of some bad pay-per-views, but you know what? On paper, Sunday's Royal Rumble looks like a really good show because we got the Royal Rumble, which usually is a good match. I don't know that it'll be as good as last year. I think it's going to be pretty difficult to be as good as last year, but it's a good format, good match. You got Edge and Shawn Michaels, and they better have a good match.
I think it would be very difficult for them not to.
I think it's very important for Edge to have a good match there because if it's not, he's the one who's taking the blame.
Yeah.
JBL, Big Show, and Kurt Angle, well, we'll see if Kurt Angle's got a miracle up his sleeve. That one may not be so good. Triple H and Randy Orton, that's going to be a good match.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Undertaker and Heidenreich, and that's going to be terrible. But we're coming off of, a one-match pay-per-view. I think that we're going to get, pretty much guaranteed 3 good matches, and the Rumble's going 30. Hunter and Randy Orton.
Are they only
60? No, they're just going 60. Okay, and Hunter and Orton, they got to go 20 plus. Mm-hmm. So, the matches they're going to have time. The only problem is I just know they're going to Undertaker and Heidenreich. They're going to go out there and book them for 15.
I don't think. Well, when you really think about it,
they better not.
They got an hour, and then Shawn and Edge aren't going to go 10 minutes. They may not have time to give them a lot of time.
Well, hopefully they give the time to Shawn and Edge and not to Undertaker and Heidenreich.
Yeah.
That's all, But,
the Gene Snitsky feud continues, so we may get that at WrestleMania.
Okay, Monday's Raw. What's your thoughts? I just,
The show was saved by Jim Ross at the end of the show where he sighed and said, "What a night. Not good."
I thought that show was like just watching not the worst of wrestling. I've seen a lot worse Raw shows. In fact, I would even say it was a pretty average Raw show overall. But it was the worst of people.
Yeah, it was everything that could have gone wrong. Well, not everything.
No, not going wrong. I don't think going wrong. I think that it's just the pettiness. I just saw so much pettiness out there in booking. It was just we'll show you.
Yeah.
You can't. You only drew the biggest crowd. Toronto only drew the biggest crowd for a Raw taping in months and months, and we'll show you for what you did at Survivor Series and what we know, or at SummerSlam, and what we know you're going to do again. So we're going to just show you. We're going to build up, your local guy as this hero, and then we're going to make a fool out of him. We're going to make a fool out of your...
Oh, the Shawn Michaels Christian thing?
They had a chance to make Christian a star. I'm not saying even win, just, have a great match, near fall, give him, you know what I mean? Yeah. Instead, they booked him to look like a doofus. They made Tomko look like a doofus. It was all to get Shawn Michaels, I was
trying to figure out why they spent so much time trying to get Christian over as a babyface and Shawn Michaels over as a heel. And then when they finally went out there, they worked the exact opposite kind of match.
Because they wanted to shove it in people's face.
But that was, that's even beyond...
But that was... You go watch that show. Anyone who's got the tape of it, watch that show again. When you watch the show a second time, knowing, kind of and see it for what it is, you'll realize it was the most unbelievable thing because it's Lawler just going crazy. You can say Bizarro World once, you don't got to say it 35 times. It's Canada, not Montreal thing, after Tuesday, but Toronto is, one of the, Toronto and Chicago are the 2 hottest cities in North America, and to just give those people the bird for 2 straight hours while, they're there and enthusiastic. My God, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah. That was a bad show.
Yeah, well, it was bad things on the show. Not to mention that, they didn't kill Dave Bautista. They didn't come close to killing him.
Oh,
but they...
I've forgotten about that.
Let me tell you something. They rolled the dice, and I would have never rolled the dice putting him in the ring with Viscera. And what if that guy hurt him?
I seriously thought that had to have been some person's way of trying to sabotage him, because that was just about the stupidest thing I've seen in a long time. I
think that their thought was we're going to show him do a big power move on this big guy and make him a monster.
I know, they could have done it in 30 seconds. They didn't have to have a match.
I know, but I think that was their mentality. And boy, when he came back and did that comeback, he'll be fine as long as he's in there with Hunter, Randy Orton, people like that, maybe Edge. But they got to be careful who they book him with. Mm-hmm. Well, certainly one guy, and again with Viscera, except for Chris Benoit, there's no one you should ever book Viscera with ever again.
That's true.
And, we were talking about Monday's Raw and Dave Bautista. I tell you what, if it wasn't for Dave Bautista...
it wouldn't be worth watching.
No, I'm just saying that, boy, they would be in trouble.
Yeah.
This guy, I'm not saying he's carrying the company, but he's carrying my interest in the company.
Think about that, too, if, 6 months ago, you could have imagined on this show going, if it wasn't for Big Dave Bautista on Raw.
Yeah, but who's making Dave Bautista is Hunter.
Yeah, they've done an incredible job.
And Flair, too. I'm right now, I know the good and the bad of Hunter, and I think everyone does, but there's a lot of people who really have a hard time admitting the good side. Mm-hmm. And he's a hell of a performer at times.
Yeah.
And this is one of those times. At other times he's not, but boy, Dave Bautista, he just plays off of Hunter. I mean, it's not really like Dave Batista. Dave Batista's like this big muscular statue that's become like the hottest babyface in the business.
Yep.
Because Hunter and Ric Flair, especially Hunter, are that good.
And I'm hoping that we don't see the bad side of Hunter immediately following WrestleMania.
Well, we'll see. You know,
I can never put it past him because we saw the best of Hunter leading up to the Benoit match.
Oh, well, the whole build-up to that was really good.
The worst of Hunter is he just killed him dead.
Yeah. Well, the worst of Hunter was the Eugene and Booker T and Rob Van Dam and other people like that.
Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, that's going back a couple of years, but that was when they were trying to fool people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the fake one, but anyway, okay, so who wins the Rumble, Cena or Batista?
You know what I think? I just thought of this the other day. They both go to the top at the same time.
Oh, not again. We just saw that. We just saw that to set up the Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, so let's do it again.
Nah, not again.
You have no creativity. Come on now.
Nah, not again. No, this is they each go, okay, you each get time. No. My feeling is that Hunter and Flair come out there when, Batista, not in the last two, because then you risk turning Cena heel, and you don't want to do that. Maybe like in the last four.
That's not good, because I picture him coming out at about number 26.
Batista?
Yeah.
Well, he's got to come in late because you don't want to get him hurt.
Yeah.
Or tax him. But anyway, I think that in the final maybe 3 or 4, Hunter and Flair come out to root him on and then like screw him, and not the screw him like a couple of weeks ago. You know what I mean? Where
they actually screw him.
They screw him big time.
The only problem if you do that is you don't get the big thumbs down.
Okay. Well.
And they seem to have built that up, so I think.
Yeah, maybe the thumbs down. Yeah, okay, but then he's going to win and they give him the thumbs down?
Screw him one more time.
But if they screw him out of winning the Rumble, because to me then it's like, we've screwed him out of the title shot, and then Eric can go in there and say, well, he's getting it anyway, and then Cena wins the Rumble, so he's at least got some momentum for you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well,
how about if they accidentally screw him, supposedly, at the pay-per-view, and then they do the big thing on Raw, where you're going to be seen by a lot more people?
Yeah. The other thing about Rumble that we haven't talked about that's important is that it's the first and last chance to shoot the whatever interpromotional angle. So if they're going to do something with Heidenreich and Snitsky as a tag team, we're going to see it.
Yay!
And if they're going to do something with we already know. I mean, they are going to do a Shawn Michaels Kurt Angle match.
Really?
Yeah. And so I think
we were excited 3 years ago, but I'm still sort of excited.
But for one night, I think that's going to be a great match.
Oh, I'm sure it will, but it
won't. I know it won't be what it would have been a year ago.
Yeah.
But that's what happens. And Edge needs to beat Shawn Michaels. That's another thing. He must beat Shawn Michaels. You don't think so, huh?
No, I think he should. I'm just laughing at the thought of it.
Yeah, I know, but he must. He must beat Shawn Michaels. That's just my thoughts on the show. Trying to think if there's anything else to get to. Now we'll start with Jeff in New York. Jeff, what's going on?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Not too much.
Got two quick questions for you. The first question is about the UFC, the TV show. I don't know his name, but you wrote an article on your website about it and a review of the show, and he mentioned the treatment of the MMA competitors by the coaches, how it differed from guys like Bob Holly, and I guess he didn't say Taz specifically, but like those guys. So, what was your like thought process on that? I mean, is there like a different mentality that like in pro wrestling it's okay because tough enough contestants were just basically newbies, didn't know the business, whereas these guys, have fought.
Yeah, that is a big difference. Is that these guys, all of these guys are real fighters who've had several fights, and most of them are almost all of them are very good real fighters. So they're not people, and they know what they're getting into. Unlike certainly the first season of Tough Enough, it seemed like the guys were really blind and had no idea what was going on. However, I found it. This is my feeling is that UFC guys, as a rule, I think are more secure. And as a company, not secure as a business, because they're not, because WWE's got a much bigger business, but I think that they're more secure of their sport than WWE people who I think have a real insecurity and have to prove that they're tough guys. Like this whole last season of Tough Enough, so many of those skits, even especially the one that backfired, were all meant to bully people, but not to make them tougher, just to like humiliate them, basically.
Put them in their place.
Put them in their place. And in Tough Enough, there's no, I mean, in Ultimate Fighter, I don't believe that there's anything of putting people in their place. And when you're watching those people throw up, it's because they're training them hard for a purpose. It's not like in, when we saw the guys throw up in, on Tough Enough on SmackDown. I mean, that was, like, let's have them have an eating contest and run wind sprints and watch them throw up as opposed to training them to, to be really gutsy and throw up. I mean, the end result's the same, but one was a bullying thing and the other was a necessary thing. I mean, because if you've been around fighters, when they really start intense training, they train until they throw up. But, they're not eating like a ton of pasta before they go train just to prove that, to make them throw.
What wrestler do you think could do that and not throw up? Or not be dead afterwards? Maybe Angle if he were healthy.
Not Angle now, but I mean, yeah, Angle. I would think, Chris Benoit and some of those guys would do. There are guys in wrestling that are in really good shape.
It has nothing to do with the in-ring.
No, and most wrestlers would die doing those Tough Enough stints. So I don't know. I guess that's kind of the. There's a real. When I watched WWE, I really saw it Monday in. There's so much insecurity there, and it kind of bugs me because they don't really need to be, and I hate seeing it so much right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess what you're saying. Interesting. The other thing I want to talk about is, first, did you see, did you get a chance to see the Unforgivable Blackness with the Jack Johnson story?
No, you know what? And I need to see it. I know it's playing on PBS. I've gotten so many emails about it, so I don't know when I'm going to get enough time to watch it, but I will certainly tape it this week and try to watch it. But I know I didn't see it.
No, okay. So he won the title in 1908. It had, I think, from 1915. In 1910, there was the first battle of the century in boxing against Jim Jeffries, who came out of retirement because he went undefeated. I think he retired in 1905. So it was 5 years later. Anyway, so he was the great white hope for all the white people, and he ended up actually being way out of Jack Johnson's league, and make it long story short, lost the fight, and there ensued probably one of the biggest riots between blacks and whites during that early time. So my question is concerning the first, I think it's Jim Browning, maybe I'm wrong, the first black wrestling champion.
Jim Browning was white.
Jim Browning?
Yeah.
I know there was...
Jim, there was, the first, God, I don't even know who the first, Bobo Brazil and Bearcat Wright and those guys were actually pioneers, and that's in, the 50s and 60s. Because there was a lot of places that, they actually broke the color barrier in. There were, Woody Strode would have been, I think, early 50s, maybe late 40s, and he was one of the pioneers of that. Luther Lindsay, which would have been 50s. There were a lot of places where, blacks couldn't wrestle whites for years and years. It was bad, just like in all sports it was. That's where the Harlem Globetrotters in basketball got it. The reason there were the Harlem Globetrotters was because they weren't allowed in the NBA it's actually pre-NBA, but they weren't allowed in white man's professional basketball.
Right. No, I thought there was a black champion. It was of course a regional champion, black champion in the 20s or 30s. There may
have been. It wouldn't have been a major one though.
I remember reading in Lou Thesz's autobiography. He was talking about that.
It wouldn't have been Browning. It might have been.
He was definitely a shooter. No, he was a shooter. It was someone who was just meant to have the belt for temporarily. I don't think he was even a shooter. I think he was just. But
the name doesn't pop into my head.
Well, in regardless, was there a similar? Is there a similar not rioting, but just more of an outcry against having a black person challenging for the title, even though it's obviously work, but still, was there there was a lot of pressure?
I'm sure, wrestling was a really racist business for years and years.
It still is.
Yeah, it's nothing compared to what it once was. But, now it's more of a stereotypical business rather than racist.
Better, yeah.
It was truly racist, there were guys who, you can't put a black in the main event. In the 60s and 70s. You know what I'm saying? More, it's more recent than you can imagine. But, like, you know, I mean, JYD was one of the first ones to actually carry a territory. I mean, when, you know, Rocky Johnson was like the first, you know, black champion in Georgia, which, you know, had a big population base, I believe. I mean, I always remember that being the case because, you know, it was always, you know, portrayed that way. And, by the time, you know, when I was watching in the 70s and they would have black challengers, it actually was a pretty big draw, you know, but it took a lot, you know, a lot of promoters wouldn't let them win though. You know what I mean? So that was kind of like what the big deal was. And I mean, you know, Thunderbolt Patterson used to talk about that. The only problem was it was Thunderbolt, you know, he would draw very well challenging for the NWA title and complain that he would never win. And I mean, you know, it's just too bad he didn't work like Harley Race, because if he did, you know, he'd have a case. You know what I mean? That was, you know, one of the problems. But, you know, I mean, his thing was, you know, I mean, he was kind of like, you know, the guy Dusty Rhodes copied, and then Dusty Rhodes, the white guy acting black, became a bigger star than Thunderbolt.
Yeah, that's right.
But, no, they didn't, you know, because they controlled it, they didn't have a Jack Johnson situation where, you know, they had that. But, yeah, I mean, I remember the Great White Hope thing in boxing. I mean, it probably, you know, almost exists to this day. I mean, certainly, you remember, was it Larry Holmes and Jerry Cooney? You know, like that thing was a gigantic fight.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was like, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago. But Jerry Cooney wasn't even a good boxer. I mean,
lousy, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching it going like, oh my God, this guy's terrible. But it drew like crazy because it was like, you know, they had created this guy and, you know, he had a good punch. And he was big, and they got people thinking he actually had a chance with Larry Holmes. And then when they were in the ring, I mean, God, so, you know, right away, it was just like, oh, my God, he is so out of his league, it's not even funny.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just wanted to make one last comment about Jack Johnson. I was surprised because all the white people, you know, back then, they were trying to find anyone they can get, any boxer that they can get to take the belt off this guy, because they couldn't get the belt off this guy. So I was wondering, was there ever any pressure on trying to get him in a pro wrestling match where someone would like break his arm or leg?
I never heard that. And that would be, you know, the funny thing is in that era, you know, the best shot of beating him would be by, you know, a pro wrestler in a mixed match.
Like a George Hackenschmidt or a Frank Dodge or something like that. Someone from that era, you know, Stecker, whoever was big in that era, because, you know, I mean, the odds are he had no wrestling training, and, you know, a wrestler that takes down a boxer, the boxer's useless. Johnson was that hated. I'm actually surprised that I never heard of any big negotiations. I mean, the big ones I always heard were, and I don't know how close these ever came, you know, although I guess there was a story even in Sports Illustrated they came close not all that long ago, you know, was Strangler Lewis and Dempsey, and that was, you know, that was. Oh yeah, Jack Dempsey.
That was years later.
Yeah, that was much, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm surprised there was nothing on that with Jack Johnson. I could have. I mean, with the racism, such racism against, I would figure they would have tried to do that to him.
Yeah, maybe they did, and his handlers were smart enough to keep him out of it. I don't know. I don't know much about the situation, but yeah, I never heard myself any stories of, you know, like them trying to negotiate like Joe Stecker or somebody like that against Jack Johnson. Just never heard it. And you're right, it would, in theory, it would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay?
Okay, all right, thanks a lot.
All right, thank you. We're going to go to Mitch in Berkeley. Mitch, what's going on?
Hey, what's happening, you guys?
Not too much.
So last week I called in and had heard about Angle and Michaels, and when we talked to you last week, it sounded like it was going to be Michaels and Edge, and I'm just wondering, it seems like this week, like, everything is changing, and it's, you know, they booked.
Oh, yeah, the thing is after Sunday, it can change all this week, but after Sunday they have to commit to, because they have to shoot the angles.
Right.
So whatever angles they're shooting on Sunday, that's the real deal. Everything else is just, you know, stuff that can change every week, because it always does.
Well, and another one that I was hearing was the idea of Orton, Legend Killer against Legend against Undertaker.
Well, we'll know that again on Sunday. I mean, I've heard that batted around too, and they'll have to shoot it on Sunday. I think that they should wait to turn Orton. So
yeah.
And they would. I don't think Undertaker's turning, although that wouldn't be the worst thing.
Is there any chance Undertaker will be ending the old school gimmick?
I don't know.
I don't
think so. The thing with Undertaker and Orton is
Undertaker's got to keep the streak alive.
Yeah, and I don't know
him losing to
Orton. Yeah. You know,
I just think that would be a great gimmick. I mean, it's just like, and they could probably pull off something decent in that situation, especially if they had Orton go over, but and then turn heel and go to SmackDown. But I think you're probably right. It's kind of like they've dropped the ball on him, and so now they're just flipping him all over the place just to try and make something work, and it probably wouldn't work.
Yeah, but any interpromotional match they're doing, they have to shoot. We're going to know that one on Sunday.
Right. Do you think that they just write off their hip at this point? Because it seems like years ago, and I'm sure it's because they had far less shows to try and manage. Like WrestleMania, I mean, you would know about WrestleMania months before it was even going to happen.
The main event you would know way, way ahead. But you know what though? Usually when it came to WrestleMania, it was December when you knew the main event. Right. And in December, I knew the main events. It's just that they changed. You know what I mean?
Even like going back to the early ones, like 3 through 6 and stuff.
Hogan and Andre, we would have figured out around December, but I think that they probably, it wasn't that much earlier because Vince had to convince Andre to come back to wrestle because Andre was pretty much done by then.
Right.
And then the tournament, I don't know when that decision was made for the tournament. I just seem to remember most of the time it was right around the first week of January when they really much solidified, where the direction of WrestleMania. Hogan and Savage, that one, the New Year, and
Hogan and Slaughter.
Hogan and Slaughter, I think they knew around April.
Right.
And, but that was because it was originally going to be Hogan and Warrior. And then when Warrior didn't draw, that's when they brought Slaughter back to beat Warrior and then to go to the Hogan card. Because originally when they did the Hogan Warrior match in Toronto, the idea was that Hogan was going to beat Warrior back or lose again, depending on how well Warrior did. At the next WrestleMania, remember Jack Tunney goes, "I will never let them wrestle because it was so violent." Yeah. The whole idea was that from the very next day. I mean, that was next year's WrestleMania, but it didn't get there.
So, do you think the longest term? I'm trying to think. The longest term build that actually went through would have been Hogan and Savage at WrestleMania 5.
To me, yeah, that was the one where you knew, and they did it all right, and they did a tremendous business for it too.
And what about Batista? Is it for sure that it's Batista and Helmsley at this point?
It's for sure that Batista's going to be in there. I mean, they could still do Orton in a 3-way.
Right.
Or even Flair in a 4-way.
That's what I was going to say. If they did 3-way, which I'm not into, I would rather Flair in a 4-way, because then you could build up this idea that you don't know where any of them are coming from, and I think that could be good. But as far as that being a WrestleMania main event, I don't know how good that would be. But then again, it'd probably be more exciting than just Batista and Helmsley.
Yeah, well, you're really counting on Helmsley because they're going to go at WrestleMania, they're going to go 20.
Right.
So you really, Helmsley's going to really have to be on his game.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work.
Yeah.
Especially when you really think about, the roles are going to be reversed. You're going to have Big Dave selling for 15 minutes, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know, and
it's not like when Big Dave's a heel and you can just steamroll guys or beat the crap out of them the whole time and they can do all the selling. He's not the best guy in the world as far as selling, and that's going to be his job from now on.
Yeah, it's going to be, the Batista stuff has been really, really fun.
The build-up's been great.
Oh yeah, but the payoff. You never know. He's gonna. The guy's gonna have to sink or swim. He's getting thrown in the pool, and we're gonna find out what he's got.
Yeah, but there are ways to make it easier for him to swim, and I'm not sure if they're going to do that.
I don't think they're going to do it. No, I know what you're saying. Yeah, keep the match short and things like that, but they may not do that.
Well, because Hunter has to be the main event. They could keep it short and they could switch it around and put something else at the end of the show, but Hunter has to be at the end of the show.
Yeah, there you go.
Because there's no way Cena and Layfield can be at the end of the show.
God, if that's where they're going, you're right. That would be a bad move.
Is that where they're going? Is there a chance that we could get?
Cena and Layfield? I don't even know because it was going to be Cena and Rock. So now I'm assuming it's Cena and Layfield.
Right.
It's Cena and Rock. Layfield and Rock.
Is Rock gone for sure?
As of today, there's nothing for sure. It's 3 months away, but yeah, as of today, he's gone for sure. Yeah.
And is it a falling out or is it a?
I don't know how to describe it. The contract ran out, and there's a story. There's a story as to why. I know what happened. As to why it happened, I have no clue. I have speculation, but I don't want to get in trouble with wrong speculation on this one, okay?
And on TNA, how can they get this X Division at the forefront of their promotion in the same way that they got over those kind of workers in ECW? And why are they going with Hall and Jarrett on top?
You mean Nash and Jarrett?
I'm sorry, Nash.
Because Dusty comes from that school where the world title is going to be the main event as long as Dusty's the booker. And in Dusty's mind, you know, Hall, Nash, and Jeff Jarrett, not so much Jarrett maybe, but let's pretend Jeff Jarrett, they're the money players.
Right.
And we're going to Alan in Deerfield Beach. Alan, what's going on?
Not much, Dave. I wanted to ask you about Hogan, if he's really signed as far as a contract. Hopefully not, but...
Hogan hasn't signed nothing with nobody.
Okay, because I was hearing a rumor that he signed.
He'll never sign. He didn't even sign the last time he went to WWE. He never did sign.
Okay. But he's going to be at WrestleMania, or
That's not 100%. I mean, I expect he'll be at the Hall of Fame thing. I think that he's willing to do that much. I don't know if he wants to you know, he could definitely wrestle at WrestleMania. It wouldn't surprise me at all. I mean, there's certainly been ideas batted around. It isn't, you know, it doesn't appear that's a definite. I mean, even Vince was on Best Damn Sports Show, and, you know, they even brought up the idea of Hogan in the Hall of Fame thing, and Vince, you know, goes, hey, what? Vince, he didn't laugh it off. He said, you know, I mean, it sounded like a good idea, and he goes, but, you know, no guarantees. I mean, so that told me it was not a done deal.
Right. And I wanted to ask you something about Bruno Sammartino. Can you hold?
Just make it real quick.
Oh, okay. I wanted to ask you, with him and Zbyszko years ago, what was the falling out about? Do you know? If it was,
just
money?
No, it wasn't money. I don't know that it was so much of a falling out as much as you know, they just don't really talk a lot. I mean, they talked recently, you know, about regarding the lawsuit, but no, they haven't been friends or anything close or anything like that in years.
There was tension years ago. Or?
Yeah, there was real tension. You know, I mean, like they weren't close, and Bruno did, you know, he did help train Larry and get him into the business. Brian, before we get to the calls, I want to talk to you about the upcoming UFC and some predictions. Tito Ortiz and Vitor Belfort.
Actually, this is a big fight because this is Tito's last fight, right?
Well, I think it might be both of them. It's Loser Leave Town.
Yeah, well, that's not the Loser Leave Town match that I wanted to see, but the other one with Phil Baroni is off, so
yeah,
sad. But I think the odds are in Vitor's favor, aren't they?
Slightly, yeah. Which
even, to be honest with you.
That surprised me that the odds were in his favor.
Yeah.
The problem here is that we got two guys who are both head cases, and I don't know. I don't say head case. I don't say Tito's a head case. Vitor's a head case. I don't know, but Tito's head is somewhere else.
Yeah.
And Vitor's a head case, so you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think it would be impossible to really put odds on this fight because you just don't know.
I am going to go with Vitor.
I'm going to go with Tito, just for the hell of it.
Okay. Andrei Arlovsky and Tim Sylvia.
Aren't the odds in Sylvia's favor?
I haven't seen the odds on that one.
I think they are. I'm not sure, so someone could call in. But I'm going to go with Arlovsky.
I am too, because Sylvia's got the big size advantage. Arlovsky's a really tough guy.
Yeah.
But my feeling is that I'm not sure how. You know, Sylvia says he's 100%. He looked 100% against Wes Sims. It's going to be a big difference.
I could have looked 100% against Wes Sims.
I know. What was the other big one? Evan Tanner and what's the guy? David Terrell.
I don't know.
I haven't seen enough of Terrell, but he looked really good against Matt Lindland for his 30 seconds that he was in there.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe Terrell. That's kind of my gut. We're going to go to Guy in Ladera Beach. Guy, what's going on?
Nothing much. How you guys doing?
Doing really good.
I had a question as it concerns kind of Triple H and Chris Jericho. Maybe how Triple H viewed Jericho when he first came into the company. I recently went back and watched the Raw episode where Jericho debuted, and that was also kind of the same night that Triple H officially became the top heel. He had a big interview confrontation with Jesse Ventura. And I remember coming out of the show, you had Triple H, who was seemingly finally handed to the spot after being built up for like 4 years. Meanwhile, all a lot of people could talk about was, this mid-card guy from WCW. Within a few months, Jericho was losing to China on pay-per-view.
Death of WCW.
The time where he won the title and it was taken away, and then he got beat clean at the end of the show. The horrible burial of him building up WrestleMania 18. Did Triple H see him as kind of maybe a threat to the spot he had just gotten when he first entered, maybe more than other people that came along afterwards?
Yes.
You might say that.
Yeah, I think so. that's the thing with, Triple H. I mean, that's, like I said, there's, whenever people try to say, I mean, I read, of course, Triple H as, the positioned biggest star in the entire industry. And he actually is with, until Steve Austin wrestles again, biggest in-ring star. That, people, you read the two versions of Triple H, and the one is I don't believe any of that stuff bad about him, which is like stupid. And the other one of he's horrible, he's terrible, and it's like he's like Vince. It's like, they're both there's it's shades of gray. I mean, it's like he's Triple H so much better of a worker than he gets credit for. But boy, he's a manipulative dude. I mean, as successful as almost anyone in history except for Hulk Hogan. And, Chris Jericho, 10 years in the business, all of a sudden doesn't know how to work. Now, now that Chris Jericho's firmly, established as a good high mid-card guy, now he's a great worker. You know what I mean? I mean, how is that?
Yeah. I guess, I also had a question about, once Batista turns, do you think they'll turn anybody heel since the sides will kind of be uneven at that point?
On Raw?
Yeah.
Maybe Jericho if they're lucky. I've been thinking they should do a Jericho turn for a while. I mean, we know Eddie Guerrero, probably Randy Orton. So maybe not. Maybe that's too much. Although that's both on.
Maybe Randy Orton.
Oh, well, he's going to turn for sure at some point. Yeah.
But didn't he just turn?
Yes.
It's kind of a stupid idea.
Well, he's going to turn again. I don't know. Like he's not
better off as a heel.
That's why he's going to turn again.
I know, but it's too early to do it.
Well, that's the deal. I mean, it's not going to be. It's not this week. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it'll happen this year though, for sure.
And I just had one last question as it concerned Rhino. I know before his neck surgery, I mean, they kind of protected him. They're pushing him on the level of somebody like a Jericho. I know he pinned Rock in a tag match, wrestled a lot of main events, and then when he came back, even before the incident, I know where he got yelled at the house show by Vince, they just never thought of him as the same. Did somebody sour on him while he was out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's when he was out or when he came back, but they definitely soured on him, yeah. Because when Heyman had, some creative power, you know who Heyman's guys are. I mean, people know, and Rhino was one of them. And the fact that Rhino didn't really get much from it, even though, he's on the Raw side and everything, but the fact he didn't get much from it, that says they've pretty much decided that, he's, Sunday Night Heat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
All right, that's all I had. Thanks a lot, guys.
Okay, very welcome. Let's go to James in Tallahassee, Florida.
Hey, Dave. Hey, Brian. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Good. I wanted to talk a little bit about Muhammad Assad on last Monday's show.
Uh-huh.
And even though they were in Canada, it seemed they were safe. It's safe from anything from American fans, but when I look at those two coming out and the reactions they get, I just feel scared for them in all honesty. That some fan's going to do something stupid, to them and just... I mean... Angle, it really is.
Okay, when you say that, though, and anyone who's watched wrestling, I mean, for years and years and years, in the old days, every top heel in a good territory, was in that same scary position. And a lot of them, they had to fight their way to the back. And I'm not saying that it's good, it's better that it's not that way, but, I mean, I've seen that before with, people and, I don't know. I mean, Bobby Heenan did get shot at a few times, but not too many others.
Doesn't it seem a little more scary, though?
It doesn't seem scarier to me than Sergeant Slaughter. But it is scarier than anything that I've seen in years and years for sure. Yeah.
But I remember that Vince used the whole cover that Sergeant Slaughter, somebody was threatening to shoot him to as an excuse they couldn't fill up the Rose Bowl to get out of there and move it to the sports arena. But wasn't he and his family really getting threats, and Adnan and all those people during the whole Iraqi angle?
Yeah, I'm sure they were. You know who got actually an incredible amount of the heat, to the point, more than Hassan ever got, because they had to stop shows, was Shawn Michaels. What was this, around 97-ish? Probably 96. Remember that period where they canceled house shows before the main event because the fans hated Shawn so much?
Oh, like in Memphis and stuff?
They had one in Memphis, I think one in Little Rock, maybe.
I remember that, too. Like, Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett were supposed to wrestle Triple H and Shawn in, like, Memphis. And they just had to cancel the show because they were throwing batteries and just all this sort of crud at him,
Yeah, there was one show. It might have been Little Rock where Shawn was in the ring with Danny Hodge.
Wow.
And they were throwing stuff at Danny Hodge, and that's when they knew, boy,
Who would throw something at Danny Hodge?
Well, you're far away, and he did look like, like, you saw Danny Hodge.
I guess that's true. I might have.
If you don't know who Danny Hodge is, and you look at him, he doesn't scare you. I mean, he's scary to you and me because we know that he's scary.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I mean, when we hear that they, I don't know, if they start shutting down shows, then they'll probably refigure it.
It's just something about it. I can see people throwing batteries at Sean. I can see people trying to shoot these two.
Well, Khosrow, Davari, that guy is he's great.
He's a heat magnet.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, Hassan, what's gonna save Hassan is that at the arenas, he's gonna start wrestling and then they're just gonna get bored.
Yeah.
I mean,
that might be another reason to take a shot at him.
We were watching them when they first debuted. I was back home in South Florida, and my mom walks into the room, who really doesn't watch wrestling, and she looks at the TV and sees these two, Arab American men yelling at Stacy Keibler and going, "Oh, they're playing stereotypical people," It's that, with that whole image. So they do their character to a T, and they really get American fans angry. But you have to, at the same time, they're real people, who are just trying to live their lives, and I feel bad for them that they're going to take any heat because of it, any negative repercussions.
Yeah, poor Mark Magnus. He can talk though.
The first day he debuted, and he was horrible and skinny and white and
in OVW.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
I vividly remember his debut because I think I remember making fun of him.
Yeah, I remember when Mark Magnus and Johnny Jeter started as job guys.
Yeah, and things have certainly changed.
Yeah. Anything else, James?
Well, the whole thing, too, back to what you said about Sean, I was just thinking when I saw that show, the specter of Montreal continues to live. And I remember right after the whole situation happened, I read your issue of The Observer, the Survivor Series issue, and I was just blown away by all the intrigue that really went into it. And you really had to feel bad for Bret Hart. You know what I'm saying? I felt really bad for him, seeing that he offered like 1,000,000 times over to keep losing the belt, just not as Shawn Michaels,
You know what bothers me is that after 7 years...
Many people don't get it.
No, but, I mean, it's the whole thing of I don't mind, you have... Everyone's got their opinion of what you should and shouldn't do, but... I mean, there's certain inalienable facts about this that people ignore when writing about it or just don't know or don't want to know. You know what I mean? Between Sean not doing the job and the creative control clause. I mean, it's like, let's not discuss any of this. It's just like, I don't know.
Oh, it's funny, though.
Yeah, well, it's funny when I remember that night, I'm going like, this is going to be something that people remember. But even then, I have no idea it was going to be like this.
Well, especially in Canada, because it's basically a black eye to all those fans. Like, that was their hero. Like, I didn't realize how important the Hart family was to Canada. And they, Stu Hart has a building named after him at the University of Toronto, It's just amazing just how popular they are and how well known. And sure, they kept business big, but they're going to have to continue with the boos to Sean and Earl Hebner and Vince McMahon,
We'll go to John in St. Louis. John, what's going on?
Hey, how you doing, guys?
Doing good.
Dave, you bring up something that I've always thought, especially when it concerns with Hunter and Shawn Michaels. I have a feeling that, once their careers are over, people will look back, a lot of fans will look back and say, yeah, they were great superstars, but, I value the people and this is weird to say this, like Hogan and Hart more. Hogan.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, as far as having a more sincere, understanding with the fans, at least, and I know that sounds strange.
Hogan. I mean, Hogan. I give Hogan credit. Hogan's done a lot of positive and negative for the industry. But
to me, it's like with Hogan, like with all the power moves that he did. I actually become petty. To me, he didn't become petty until the last few years in WCW.
He didn't have to be.
Yeah.
I don't know that
he had confidence in his own drawing ability, where Triple H and Shawn Michaels were so insecure. They have to pull these things.
Well, the thing with Triple H and Shawn is they learned from Nash. And I think that's the deal is I don't say learned, but because they were all together, and I think it rubbed off on them. And I mean, of all of them, Nash is really the worst.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
in my mind, because I guess because Nash kept his spot and subjected us to horrible matches too.
Right.
Whereas with and you know kind of lifeless, overrated interviews. Whereas.
But the thing is, Dave, to me, for what all of Shawn Michaels has done, I've never, even in that confidential thing, I've never heard him say, and I've never read anywhere where, like, he either privately or writes a letter to Bret Hart and just say, I apologize, for this,
He'll give a fake apology.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll give a sincere one.
And, it's funny because, I can't believe he's reformed his ways when, he does all, he points to the Lord every time he comes out, and, he's just selling his Christian T-shirts every time he comes out.
Well, maybe he's not really sorry.
Yeah, that's possible.
It's there's different ways to look at it.
I don't think he is.
I have seen it as like this was his job, and he did his job, and he has nothing to be sorry for.
Oh, I think it's more than that. I think that they were in a fight, and this was his enemy, and he's got a chance to screw his enemy, and he's not sorry because he got to screw his enemy, and he's still his enemy today.
Hasn't Hebner at least apologized? I thought.
I think he did. Yeah, I think he did.
And I mean, Vince. I know Vince, as like my friend always says, he has gutter instincts. So, you can't. And I mean, he's still screwing around with this, but.
They'll be screwing around with it for 20 years.
Yeah, till he's dead.
It's going to go forever because they'll never let it go.
Right.
I mean, Monday was the proof of that one.
A few questions on the Rumble. I was wondering, I kind of see a couple things happening out of the Rumble. One, I see Snitsky kind of interfering in this casket match to set up the Kane, the wonderful Kane.
I can see that as a possibility, and that sounds that sounds wonderful.
I'm still not sold on the fact that they're going to do a Batista Triple H main event at WrestleMania, because I think I like what I was hearing from somebody else was saying as far as the four-way. The
four-way is a nice idea, but I think, you know what? I think that so much is I just think that there's so much money in Triple H and Batista, and the four-way, there's not as much money. It would be a different kind of match. It would be intriguing. I think you can do both, but I think WrestleMania, and I know Triple H thinks that, even though, last year he didn't do it, because that involved getting Shawn back in. But Triple H said many times that he thinks that WrestleMania should be, mano a mano.
But aren't they going to burn off any potential rematches from that? Because once they see Batista, can't go 20 minutes maybe, or.
Well, hopefully they do it in a way where people don't see that.
Yeah.
And maybe the guy is so whatever. I mean, let's face it, Hogan was never any great shakes. And he survived for years, and there's plenty of guys who survived that really weren't great workers because they were really charismatic. And maybe, Batista's on a roll right now. We don't know when they're going to reject him or if they're going to reject him. But, maybe they're going to like him so much that they'll just put up with the shortcomings. You don't know.
And then, last thing, if Shawn Michaels doesn't do the JOB for Edge Royal Rumble, I mean, again, that's another black mark, because I still think it's like he's going to do what he did with Jericho at WrestleMania 19, lose to Edge on a Raw that nobody cares about. And to me the best thing for him is, I think he should go back to being a heel. If anybody should be a heel, it should be him.
I think so too. I think that might be the religion thing, because I think that if you asked most people, they would say that. I think that the idea of Hunter, Ric Flair, and Shawn as the heel group,
right,
which has been discussed and turned down, but it can always happen. I think that's a real strong group, and get Orton will end up on SmackDown, and Batista ends up as a top babyface, hopefully with somebody like Benoit to be a sidekick, to where they can
right.
you've got a good sidekick for him.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like crazy that they're thinking Eddie Guerrero is going to be the new heel. I mean, he's still getting one of the biggest baby face pops, and he's going to be a heel against some pretty pathetic baby faces. I mean, the only person I can think of.
Well, I think that's a way to do something with Ray.
Yeah.
You know, because they know they have something in Ray, but they don't know how to do it, and they don't know what to do with him. And Eddie and Ray, at least, is like, they're best friends. They'll give you a good match. They're comfortable with each other. If Eddie's going to turn heel, you know, Ray's a good guy to heel on because everybody likes Ray.
Yeah, well, unless it's Cena, I guess, too, and it's just that I can't see, I don't want to see the matchup like Guerrero and JBL on one side, you know, versus Ray and
Cena.
I guess it could be.
Better than JBL and the rest of his crew.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, really, the only thing that's been going on good with JBL is, to me, is just the fact that you're elevating Orlando Jordan, who's a really good talker, who really is, I think, really the star of that group, you know, who can wrestle, who can, you know.
I like all those guys. I like the dynamic of the group. I just don't like JBL with the belt, you know. Yeah. But that's just, John, we got to get running, okay?
All right, thanks a lot.
Okay, we're going to go to Kelly in Dallas. Kelly, what's going on?
Hey, how you guys doing tonight?
Doing really good.
Hey, I got a quick, actually I got a couple of questions. I want to know, back when the WWF, when it was the WWF, remember when they had that outside WrestleMania at Las Vegas?
Oh, you're giving me nightmares, but I remember it very well, yes.
I want to know what happened to Hogan. He showed up there and he had a horrible black eye.
Wasn't he in a boating accident? Everyone says that Savage hit him, but that's not true. He was in a boating accident.
Now, I don't know. I was wondering what happened, you know, now.
Yeah, he had a boating accident a couple days before the show, or I forget how many days.
Okay, now I got another question. It was last week or the week before, so I always listen to you on my Sirius satellite radio. You guys were talking about wrestlers who could cross the line and be good mixed martial artists, like in the Ultimate Fighting.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys have threw out some names. And do you know who Randy Couture's first ever match was in the UFC? Who he fought in his first ever match?
Yeah, Ludwig Borga, Tony Holm.
God, and it lasted like 30 seconds and it was over.
Yeah, he took him down and choked him. And Tony Holm had a rep among wrestlers as being a really tough guy.
Really?
You know, but it's bar fighting and UFC fighting, there's a lot of guys that are really good bar fighters, and you put them in there with a trained UFC fighter who's in shape, trained for a fight, and they're going to get thrashed pretty quick.
Now, going on that side, now, you always hear, Vanderlei Silva just got beat by some guy named
Mark Hunt.
Mark Hunt. Now, this guy came out of nowhere. I never heard of him before, and I follow that pretty good, too.
Well, he was a K1. He was a K1 Grand Prix champion in 2002, and he was 70 pounds heavier, so...
he got big pretty fast.
No, he was always big. The guy's been 280 probably since he was, for years, ever since I've seen him.
Do you think Rickson Gracie will ever fight again?
Nah, and there's no point in fighting. He's an old man. I mean, not old, but he's 46 years old, so there's no point.
I got to roll with him on the mat one time at a seminar.
Uh-huh.
And I rolled with a couple of guys there, but God, he was so much far better than everybody else.
Oh yeah, technically and everything like that. You know what I mean? Doing it since childhood. Yeah, he's no doubt he's awesome technically.
Do you think, where would he fit in right now, do you think, if he was in his prime and not the old man? Where do you think he would fit in?
If he was in his prime and then trained the way the guys did with the knowledge that the guys have, you can never say. With what he had years and years ago, no, because it's evolved too much. Like all of those guys, the guys that were great, with what they had then wouldn't be the top guys now. But, I mean, if he trained from childhood for this UFC... and at 185, maybe he'd be really great. There's no way of knowing. I mean, that's kind of what I think. And we're going to go to Steve in Las Vegas. Steve, what's going on?
Well, Dave, Brian, you asked last year in your newsletter for some sports logic ways to make the Royal Rumble fair competition if it was sports logic. And I have a couple of solutions. Not that any of them would ever be used.
Okay.
One is it could be part of the Raw and SmackDown shows. It's more than qualifying matches, but have some kind of point system, and especially with the heel that you like, constantly getting screwed with DQs or whatever. So going up and down, so you get seated and you get points accordingly. But it spoils the surprise of the day of the show, though.
Right.
That's solution number one. Solution 2 and 3 are, okay, you draw a low number, but if you could clear the ring at any time, even if you're just number 1 and 2, and you clear the ring, guess what? You get a break, you go back, and you're number 31 now, et cetera and so forth. Or if you eliminate 5 guys on your own or get credit for 5, and there could be a dramatic way of, oh my God, he's about to clear the ring. Will he get, instead of just being, the one guy? But that's my suggestion.
It will never be done.
Oh, I know that. I didn't say that we're going to do any of this stuff. I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
And, there's a lot of things that, I mean, if they had the courage to do it, they could get their best workers and pick tag team names out of a hat as a shoot, and then do a match and show how creative they can be. And all
Didn't we do this in WCW once? It was horrible.
Taboo Tuesday was the same sort of deal where...
No, they didn't pick names out of a hat. Remember that...
Jericho didn't know he was going to face, so they kind of had to...
Hey, I'll give you one more.
Or that he was going to lose.
That's true.
Yeah.
Take it or leave it, but I actually told that idea to Bobby Heenan before they did it, so I'm actually taking credit for that one.
Taboo Tuesday. A lot of people, Taboo Tuesday. Yeah, yeah, okay, that's nice, but whoever gave him the idea to do it again next year, that's who I want to know. I'll tell you what, it's like I liked the idea the first year, but when I saw the buy rate come in, that's when I realized that, I may have liked that idea, but it wasn't a good idea, and to do it again on a Tuesday, no less.
I think the Tuesday was the biggest foolish thing of all.
But they're doing it again next year on a Tuesday. They're blaming it on the fact there was a baseball game that night.
Well, good. They deserve to fail then.
That's right. They do deserve, absolutely. So, anyway.
But, anyway, and in honor of Johnny Carson, let's have a little remembrance of the Tuesday Night Titan show with Vince McMahon and the Ed McMahon role played by Lord Alfred Hayes.
Oh, yes. I remember that. Brian, did you ever watch Johnny Carson?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
Okay, I was just
Johnny Carson.
Oh, he was the greatest.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Growing up, watching, like when I was like teenager and I was allowed to stay up to watch Johnny Carson or sneak that TV in my room and turn it on when I wasn't supposed to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. God. I after he retired, I watched Jay Leno fairly often, but it's, it was never the same to me. So, anyway, said that. Steve, we're going to get going, okay?
Okay, that's great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
We're going to go to Dennis in Montgomery, Alabama. Dennis, what's going on?
Guys, y'all got a great show. Listen to y'all every chance I can get. Y'all do a good job.
Thank you very much.
And I want to ask you about some old-time wrestling announcers, Dave, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure, no problem. I hope I know him.
Charlie Platt.
I know Charlie Platt.
And late Jim Carlisle out of Columbus, Georgia. What did you think of them?
Charlie Platt was all right. Jim Carlisle of Columbus, Georgia. I mean, I heard him, but I certainly didn't hear him enough to have an informed opinion about him. Charlie Platt used to. I thought that him and Gordon Solie. I liked what was it Continental? I mean, or they were called Southeast sometimes. They had different names of that territory as they changed owners so many times. But I always liked Charlie Platt and Gordon Solie as a team. I thought that was a good TV show, and they used to show some good arena footage and stuff when Brad Armstrong, Jerry Stubbs. I like that territory.
That was good old days, I think. You gotta admit, I would say Charlie Platt's better than Tony Schiavone any day.
Well, certainly, I think at Tony's best he was better, but at Tony's worst, he was far worse.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree on that. And also on our old-time wrestling promoter, what did you think of the Fred Ward out of Columbus?
Fred, he was a very successful promoter for years and years and years, running weekly in, Columbus. And, I don't know much of him other than, he was a big part of the politics there, and he had his detractors for sure, and he had his supporters. But, I know he thought, him and Ole, crossed paths a couple of times, and, I didn't know him personally though, so I know that he was a successful promoter for not just wrestling, but for many other things for years and years. He's from that old school of promoters. A lot of those guys,
which I like personally.
Yeah, a lot of those older promoters, they were around for 30, 40 years, running every week, and I think that generally speaking, and there are exceptions. I think generally speaking that those promoters were much smarter promoters because it was their vocation. And they promoted to make money as opposed to, it was their living. So if they did something for ego and it didn't make them money, they didn't do it very often. And if they did something that flopped, they sat there and said, this flopped, and this is why, and they wouldn't do it again. Whereas now, I think that there's just this thing of, we'll copy like independent promoters just copy everything that the big guys do, whether it's good or bad, and no one has a conception of what works and what doesn't work, I think. Or not no one, but a lot of people don't, I should say.
And also, too, there was a valet that was in Texas. Where happened to Sunshine?
I think she's back in Florida. It was on a message board of whatever happened to, Jimmy, because I think she was like related to Jimmy Garvin, actually.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know what happened to her. I know she went back to Florida, and when she got out of the business, she never went back.
Yeah, and also, too, I like to make suggestions for a couple of guests on your show.
Uh-huh.
What do you really think of them? Adrian Street and Bob Armstrong, or Austin Idol.
Austin Idol would be great. Bob Armstrong would be great. Yeah, that's Adrian. How's Adrian Street's talking? Because I know he had throat cancer.
Really?
Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't spoken to him. I don't know. I mean, they all of them would be they'd be great storytellers for sure. I mean, Bob Armstrong's.
Yes, I know there was a love-hate relationship between Hogan and Randy Savage. What does Hogan think of Austin Idol and vice versa?
I don't know. I hope he thinks he's a great interview though, because he was.
Yeah.
But personally, I don't even know. I don't know.
You don't know that. Guys, y'all have a good night.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay, we're going to go to Chris in Arkansas. Chris, what's going on?
Hey, Chris. Hey, what's going on, dude?
Not too much. What's going on?
No, I was talking, you said something about it last week, and you brought it up this week again, but the Bradshaw deal, obviously everybody jumping on the bandwagon, and I think they've already been on there for quite a while. Not really particularly liking him. He's not a guy that I would have went to for the belt, without a question. I mean, I wouldn't have put him on, put the title on him. But at the same time, I wanted to ask you, and it ties into my overall question that I had tonight. Do you think that even though he's not really getting over as a credible champion, that because he's held it so long, do you think that it's still going to do what they want him to do anyway, and that's hopefully give a rub to a younger guy, someone like John Cena? Do you think that he can still be effective as a champion, even though nobody's really particularly liking him as the champion?
It depends on, if John Cena wins... Oh, by the way, real quick, the Patriots beat the Steelers 41-27. The game's over. I just want to make mention of that. But if John Cena wins, I don't think that the fact that he beat JBL or would have beaten somebody else is really going to make a difference as much as how John Cena handles himself in that position. I think the title is very weak right now, and I think you're winning a title that doesn't mean much. But if you're a great champion, it will mean something with you. The title is not dead forever. It just doesn't mean a whole lot right now.
Well, and it kind of ties in because JBL winning, I think that because the fans haven't responded, nor would, I'm sure they didn't imagine the fans to respond positively whenever they gave him the title. But, it kind of shows that there's two ways to look at it. I think that if you listen to the fans, Vince listens to the fans, and some people say that he should listen to the fans more. Well, then, they wouldn't have went with Bradshaw, but he's kind of forcing the fans to believe something that, for some reason, he believes in.
Yes, he's doing. Yeah. Yeah, I know. He's exactly doing that, yeah.
And that actually is a question of mine. Do you think that there's a balance, there's a boundary, there's some sort of line when you look at that? I mean, how much do you think that they should listen to the fans more, or do you think they should do kind of more and not listen to them and try to make the, fans believe in something that they believe in?
I believe that I think a great booker has a story that they want to tell and they know how to tell it, and they should get the fans hooked on the story. If you listen to the fans change their mind every week. If you listen to the fans, you will never have long-term stories because the fans don't write long-term stories. So, if something is flopping miserably and it's not drawing, yes, you listen to the fans and you listen to the, and you get out of it and you figure out a way out of it and you always, you know what I'm saying? But you have to write the stories yourself. I want
to ask, do you think, is there any way that a SmackDown guy can win this Rumble, as much as they're focused on Raw right now?
Yeah, if they do the angle that I talked about earlier where, the evolution, Hunter and Flair take out Batista themselves because Batista and Cena are the two favorites. So if they take out Batista, that leaves Cena as the favorite. So I think there's a chance, but if, my gut is that Batista's winning the Rumble.
Yeah, mine too. I appreciate the phone call.
Okay, very welcome.
Is Triple H doing the thing that Hogan used to do where he would keep other wrestlers down to keep himself on top? They just noticed that
everyone on top does that to a degree, even when they think that they're not. I think that Triple H probably might even think he's not, but in fact he is. So, yeah constantly.
It seems like now that wrestling is kind of like gotten kind of pretty much boring right now.
Well, actually, I think it's starting to pick up a little bit right now, but last year was not a good year.
And what really happened with WCW? It's like they were going good, and it's just the bottom.
Oh my God! Hey, I'll tell you what. February 6th, we're going to spend 2 hours on that subject because we're going to have R.D. Reynolds and Brian here talking about the death of WCW and the life of WCW. So, anyway, we'll be back next week. You'll listen to Wrestling Observer Live on the Sports Byline Broadcasting Network.